This game isn't really about one big blunder. It's about how chess quietly punishes decisions you don't even realize you're making at the time. Black opens with the Dutch defense, an opening built almost entirely around one trade, give up some long-term structural safety in exchange for early space and activity. It's a completely legitimate approach. Plenty of strong players build entire repertoires around openings like this, because the reward is real, you get to dictate the character of the game from move 1 instead of just reacting. But every opening philosophy comes with a bill attached, and the bill for this one doesn't arrive on move 1. It arrives later, exactly when you've stopped thinking about it. A few moves in, Black makes a routine-looking trade in the center. Nothing dramatic, just pawns coming off the board the way they do in hundreds of games every single day online. Except this trade quietly removes the only 2 pawns that could ever have defended one particular square. Nobody notices, because why would they? The consequence isn't due yet. It just sits there, waiting. 2 moves later, Black plays a completely natural developing move onto that exact square, and White simply takes it. For free. And this is really the whole philosophy of the game compressed into one moment. White doesn't win the pawn by calculating some deep, brilliant combination in that instant. White wins it because the position had already been decided several moves earlier, and nobody went back to check the math. Chess doesn't just ask you to solve the position sitting in front of you right now. It asks you to remember every decision that led there, even the quiet ones that didn't feel like decisions at all. This is worth sitting with for a second, because it's probably the single most common way games are actually lost below the top level. Not a dramatic miscalculation under pressure. A completely reasonable-looking move, made with total confidence, onto a square that quietly stopped being safe several moves earlier. The brain doesn't re-audit old assumptions. It just assumes the position is still what it felt like a few moves ago. There's a second debt running in parallel for the entire game, and it's a much slower one. Black's king never castles. Not once, from move 1 to the very end. Every move spent developing a piece, creating a bit of activity here, applying a bit of pressure there, is a move not spent paying that particular debt down. And for a long time, it costs absolutely nothing. 13 moves go by and the king just sits there, and the game looks completely fine. Then, on the 14th move, a check lands on a diagonal that only matters in the first place because the king never left the center, and there's suddenly no good answer left anywhere on the board. Look at the contrast in philosophy between the two sides across the whole game. At one point, White spends an entire move on what looks like nothing, a tiny pawn push that doesn't develop a piece, doesn't win material, doesn't create a single threat. It just quietly removes a future problem before it can happen. Around the same time, Black spends a move bringing a bishop out to create pressure and stir up some activity, since the position already feels uncomfortable. Both moves look similarly quiet on the surface. But one of them is paying down risk, and the other is spending it. That difference in philosophy, fixing problems early versus generating activity to compensate for problems, is really the entire game in miniature. And once White actually gets ahead, watch what happens to the ambition level. It drops, on purpose. There's no attempt to force anything, no reaching for a knockout blow while still up only a single pawn. Every move is simple, safe, and slightly annoying for Black to deal with. That's not timidity, that's technique. When you're already ahead, the winning strategy is almost never to play more aggressively, it's to remove your opponent's chances for complications and let the advantage sit there quietly accumulating interest. By the time the final combination arrives, a central pawn push that gains space while attacking a piece, followed immediately by a knight landing on a dominant square while attacking the queen at the same time, it barely even feels like a tactic anymore. It feels inevitable. And that's really the deeper point underneath all of this. Tactics don't usually appear out of nowhere. They show up when the strategic groundwork has already made them possible. White wasn't hunting for a combination for 14 moves. White was just accumulating small, boring advantages, and the position eventually did the calculating on its own. Two players near 1800, both of whom clearly know their openings, both of whom develop soundly and don't hang pieces in one move. And the game still comes down to exactly the same two things that decide almost every game at this level, a square nobody rechecked, and a king that never got around to going home. Not a brilliant idea from the winning side. Just the absence of one from the side that lost.